Hi everyone, I am here answering student questions and I've got some great questions, so let's get to it. Alright, how did I do in school? And the answer is I did pretty good in elementary, less good in junior high, and by grade 12 I was really struggling. I was okay with like English and language arts, but I was failing math, I was barely passing bio and chem. So I just went and I talked to my teachers and I talked to my friends and I talked to my parents and I got as much help as I could get. Because I think that's the big thing, right? Is when we don't know what we're doing or we need help, is to love ourselves enough to go over to somebody and say, can you help me? Can you help me? What was my favorite book to read? And why was it my favorite? My favorite book to read, my favorite book in the world is The Little Engine That Could, because I just think she's the pluckiest character I've ever known. How many books have you published so far? Books, I've been published I think between 12 and 14 times, and then actual, short stories included in articles and that sort of thing, then I've been published over 20 times. If I wasn't an author, where would I be right now? If I could have created a job as a professional tummy rubber for dogs and cats, that's what I would be doing right. What advice would you give to me if I wanted to make a sci-fi story? Sci-fi is awesome, so I would say be patient because you have to build in the world, right? You have to build in the science and you have to build in all the other stuff, and that's awesome, and it can be frustrating. So just be really patient with yourself and good luck. What advice would you give to someone who wants to grow up to be an author? My advice to you is keep going. This is a really difficult industry to break into, but it is not impossible. So love your story and love that dream of being an author enough that when people tell you no, you just say okay and you keep trying anyhow. Do I have a pet? I have 2 cats and 2 dogs. In your opinion, what makes writing fun? Well, because I think writing is cool. You put these words on a page and you hand it over to somebody, and then all of a sudden when they're reading it, the stuff that's in your head is suddenly in their head. And the idea of that, the idea of putting thoughts in people's heads and putting emotions into people's hearts, that totally is the coolest, funnest thing ever. How long have I been writing for? I have been a writer for 10 years. What are the best things to add in a story? That's really going to vary depending on the kind of story you're writing, but the biggest thing to a good or a great story is making your reader feel something. So if you're writing a scary story, then the best things to add in that story are going to be the things that are going to scare your reader. If you're writing a silly story, then it's the stuff that's going to make them laugh and giggle. Which is your favorite book that you have written? The book that I'm currently working on is my favorite book because if it wasn't my favorite book to work on, I would go off and do something else. So once I'm done writing this book and I start writing a new book, that new book will now be my favorite book because the fact that I love that story is what's going to keep me in the chair even when it's getting frustrating and I'm not particularly writing well. How do you think of the main event that happens in the story? Usually I'm thinking of it from the reader's perspective, like what would be awesome for them, what would be amazing, what would surprise them. So really I'm thinking of what's the emotion I can create in the reader, and then that's the thing that I go out and do. How did you keep going in your hard times? Well, first of all, I really wanted it, right? And I wanted it even though it was going to be difficult, and I wanted it and I knew it was going to be difficult. And how do you keep going? Well, because you're going to hear a lot of no's in your life, and really to get the thing that you want, all you need is the one yes. So every time I got a rejection from a publisher or an editor or an agent, I would always think to myself, I'm one no closer to my yes. And maybe my yes is the next letter I send out or the next manuscript I send out. So I was always going because I was always saying I'm one no closer, I'm one no closer. Other than writing, what is something you are passionate about? Chocolate. If you get writer's block, how do you overcome it? Writer's block for me, and it can vary for other people, but writer's block for me happens when I'm trying to write perfect from page 1. And I have to take a breath and remind myself that it is okay if I have to erase stuff, and it's okay if I have to delete stuff, because that means I care about my story. So then I can just let it be kind of a disaster, because I can always come back and try again.